Okay, good.
Absolutely.
All right. So I've prepared something I thought was something that is pertinent to what's happening in the world and what's happening in many people's lives always. And so my subject is polarization, spirituality, and the individual. Okay. So polarization, I've looked up the official definition of it. Division into two sharply contrasting groups, sets of opinion or belief. That's polarization. And the world, we have seen a lot of that, and it sharpened a lot. It became stronger, for example, during the COVID period, but it is still very strong. And so it matters. It's a subject that matters to us. On the other hand, we have spirituality. And our spirituality, of course, is defined by or is inspired by the path of yoga, and more specifically of Kriya Yoga, just what Mayatri was talking about before. It's all about accompanying people to a state where they can really embrace a meditation, a meditative practice, a spiritual practice, a technique uh, that really on a scientific base and as well as a deeply felt artistic base can take us to that inner space where no polarization exists. We know that spirituality and yoga is all about union. Okay, especially the word yoga even means union. So union of the soul with God, or union of the little self with the universal, the divine self, okay, which is always us. Self with a lowercase, self becomes self with an uppercase, and then it's still both us. Or psychological union, psychological integration, where your subconscious mind and our conscious mind and our intuition, they all work together, and we're not fragmented into little contradictory energies and directions, emotionally or mentally. And then in the middle stands the individual. Okay. And individual, that word is also very important. I will touch on that very soon. But it comes originally from Latin individuus, and that means that which cannot be divided. That which cannot be divided. So it's even more solid than the atom. The atom can be divided, right? And then you have atomic energy. The individual, which in the spiritual sense, in our sense, it means awareness, self-awareness. There is a subject, and that is perceiving, and it can perceive through the senses and see things very imperfectly. It can perceive more intuitively, and then even perceive glimpses, or more than glimpses, the presence of God. And so, but it is always from an undivided, from a unity deep within that cannot be divided, even though we feel often conflicted, because polarization is also, the reason why we want to go on a spiritual path. We are inwardly often divided. There is the little self and there is the higher self. And in our hearts, they pull on both ends. It's like a tug of war. Very often, it's like a tug of war. There are lots of energies that pull us into a more direct emotional relationship with the world, with ourselves, with other people. And there is that higher self with the capital letter, capital S, that pulls us up and says, oh, there is so much more. There's so much joy. You don't need to. You can leave all that. Just don't bother. Look at me. Look up. And so those two are often pulling. One is pulling us down, the other one is pulling us up. And then you have the two talking to each other, and they are really polarized, because it's very hard if the little self begins to listen to the higher self, then it will gradually grow, and in the end, the two of them will become like one, right? But if it says, well, I want that much of it, but not all of it, then there will be a compromise. And when it compromises with its own delusions, then it's very difficult to get out of that. So polarization is also happening in our hearts. And daily, when we meditate, when the yogi meditates, that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to absorb the little self and the higher self and overcome polarization. So we need to understand then why polarization brings suffering. Well, on a social level, it's easy because polarization leads inevitably, when it becomes stronger, it leads to war. It's when countries stop talking to each other, that they go to war. They stop talking and they start fighting, right? And so I remember when I was teaching at our school here, in the meantime, probably more than 10 years ago, I was teaching senior high school, and no, sorry, junior high school. And I had to teach them the history, the First World War, okay? The first, 1914 to 1918. And I remember when I was preparing, looking at the causes of that conflict. And one of the causes always stuck with me. And I also grasped the opportunity to go deep into that subject with the students, with kids. That was that there was no neutral country. Okay, there were two opposite alliances. So on the one hand, you had England and France and Russia and later also Italy, and on the other side you had the German Empire and the Austrian Empire, and there were no neutral countries. So there was no possibility to find common ground. There was no mediation possible. And that leads to conflict. And that's exactly what happened. And then very significantly, that war was fought in trenches. So the members of the opposite armies were entrenched in their own reality, basically. They were not reaching out. If they reached out, it was only to fight and to kill. Okay. So this is why polarization in the world brings suffering. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about suffering. I'm going to talk about the hidden blessings of it, but that will come a little later. Bear with me. So, on a personal level, why does it create suffering? Because when people polarize on a personal level, it leads to separation. Okay, and there is no separation probably without suffering. Separation between friends, separation between spouses or lovers, within family. It is always the case that one of the two realities, one of the two subjects goes into a more personal space. The other cannot reach him or her there and will react and go in his or her own reality. And then you have two different realities and they're not relating to each other. They desire maybe something from each other. And so they reach out, but they can't really connect. And then you have polarization. And that often leads to separation, unless you're spiritually very, very strong and mature. So, but then we said, the individual, first of all, let's look at that first. We said the individual cannot be divided. Okay. So when we look at ourselves from above 360 degrees, from the highest perspective, we are complete in ourselves. That is a spiritual truth, and we are working hard to make that happen in our daily lives. Okay, feel inner completion by the presence of God, by the presence of self, of higher self. So, but in the meantime, we have to face all these things, and often suffering is a part of life. but it can lead us to a higher octave in our spiritual perspective. It can bring spiritual growth. And so the most well-known example for people who seek self-realization through the path, let's say, of not only Yogananda, Kriyananda, but Ananda, okay, which has a particular vibration and can help people to come to self-realization if it is your thing, if it is your direction. The most famous example is Swami Kriyananda's experience with self-realization fellowship. And the book in which he describes that was originally called A Place Called Ananda. And then later, apparently, and Naya Swami's Narayan and Dharma Devi just wrote that to me, who are now coming to visit you. They wrote that just to me the other day, saying at the end of his life, Swami changed the title and it became Go On Alone. So I recommend that book to everyone because it is also just a lot of suspense. It's a great reading, but also it can teach us a lot of lessons. One of them being that from polarization, also freedom can ensue, spiritual freedom. So what happens? He just describes it. Most of you know the story. I'll touch on it lightly, just briefly. So he came to Master in 1948, and during the 3.5 years that he spent with his Master, Master took him apart a lot and gave him a lot of personal, individual guidance. There is a chapter in the book in Swami Kriyananda's autobiography, which is called True Teaching is Individual. Okay, it cannot not be individual because it is so. Each individual is unique, so each individual needs to be approached in a unique, different way. So that's what Master did with all his disciples. That's what he's still doing with each one of us. He's calling to us, and he will help us to develop our unique gifts of the Spirit. So he gave Swami a lot of personal instructions, and then on March 7th, 1952, he left the body, and Swami, of course, remained in the organizations of Realization Fellowship, he even became vice president. Okay, but what happened was that he had received different instructions than the instructions that he was receiving from his superiors in Master's organization. And he really deeply believed that he had to be in the organization. Why? Because it was Master's organization. But he was not, he was not questioning that, but it was very difficult. And it became sharper and sharper because it was as if Master had planted a seed in Swami's heart. That seed you might call mission, dharma, and that seed wanted to sprout and wanted to grow, and it received no tender loving care, where he was the opposite. Okay, and so he had to face loneliness and misunderstanding, and yes, polarization. So there is a chapter in the book which is really called Polarization. And like we said before, inevitably, and I'll not go over all the details, but inevitably, that polarization eventually led to his separation from Self-Realization Fellowship. The misunderstanding came to a point where there was no trust in him anymore from his superiors, and they expelled him. Now, spiritual growth always takes time, and only with hindsight can we say, can we really start counting our blessings? That's why we usually, if you have a gratitude journal or you want to count your blessings, you do that at the end of the day, right? Or maybe at the end of a particular project or at the end of a difficult period. he was not able to count his blessings when he was expelled from the organization. He was suffering. It was sheer suffering. And he also was doubtful. He was doubting himself. That was um, a challenge that he had to face from other lifetimes, even spiritual doubt. But then gradually his strength came back when he discovered that by accepting invitations to speak in public, his energy came back. He felt Master's smile in his heart again. And once that was clear, he went on alone. By going on alone, his power, his spiritual power increased. By claiming his duty, by accepting his duty to go on alone and to follow the guidance, the inner guidance that he had received from Master, he became strong again. And that is how the suffering of polarization led to separation and then to realization. Okay. And the difficulties, the suffering, the part of suffering in it was that he was alone. But then the blessing of the whole situation was again that he was alone. So he could follow his inner guidance. And of course, he was not really alone. Master was with him, but then eventually other people came and understood and accepted his guidance. And then you and I came, and you see, he's not alone. But he had in a way, the power, the unique power that Swami was given was the power of authenticity. Because if you follow institutional guidance sort of blindly, just because the superiors tell you to do things, and you do it, but deep in your heart, you know that there's something else that needs to be worked out, then something within you will not flower, will not blossom, because it's institutional. We are now in the age of the individual. Dvapara Yuga is the age of the individual, which means that religion, spirituality needs to be tested. And it can only be tested by the individual. And once we realize through experience that we have found something valuable, spiritually important for us, then we can start joining other groups of people that are not necessarily institutions, but we can give trust and we can trust each other and join hands and do things together. But it will also and always be based on a choice that has been made on a very deep level of our consciousness. And a choice that probably also over the years needs to be made again and again. Okay. So that is then how polarization will bring suffering, separation, then suffering. And then if we accept our dharma in life, and we accept that there was going to be some solitude or loneliness, and then we move on. Then we get to a level of trust, of inner strength that nothing can compare. And you don't need to explain it to anyone. It's just there. Okay. Now, just to finish, there is an inner way in which we can work with polarization and the tension that it brings. And that has to do to explain that, I'm going now to refer to Swami's book about astrology. He wrote one booklet, Your Sun Sign as a Spiritual Guide. It's not really about how to read a horoscope, but it gives them a very relatable and helpful description of the 12 signs of the zodiac, which when you put them together, they form the cosmic man or woman. Okay, so each sign represents a unique relation to the phenomenon of spiritual growth. So here, I would like to talk about the sign of Libra. I myself have the moon in that sign. And Libra, of course, is the scale. So it is a sign of balance, of harmony, also of beauty. And on a lower octave, people who are receive a lot of Libra influence, for example, like me, when you have the moon there, or when Libra is your ascendant or the sun, but especially, then those are people who want to have peace at all costs. Okay. And they can't handle conflict. They can't handle it when someone you love is just very angry at you, which is probably something that can happen. It's you can almost say when it never happens, then you say, "What's the matter with you?" By the way, this was funny. We were when Jyotish and Devi were here. We took them out one day to Loreto, which is a little town nearby, and there is a wonderful sanctuary that contains brick material from the house of Jesus and Joseph and Mary and Jesus, the Holy Family. And so we meditated there, and then in the end we had coffee and we sat on a terrace, and it's very sweet. We were with about maybe 8 people, okay, and Davy looks and says, "Oh, we have such a wonderful, sweet family." And I looked at one person that I sometimes argue with, and who was sitting on the other side of the table, and I said, "Yeah, yeah, Davy, and we never argue." And she said, "What's the matter with you?" So anyway, so the Libra influenced person cannot handle that. It just when there's conflict, it's just too much. They want peace at every cost, and that doesn't work. Okay, you cannot force peace on other people. The only way you can find it is by going deep within. When we go deep within and we tune into the higher octave of Libra, those very high stars, then what we can do is we can perceive harmony. So Swami says it's impossible to create harmony. You can only perceive it through the yogic superpowers of concentration and devotion and pranayama, which you're going to do now with Mike, and then you can get to a higher state of consciousness where harmony can be perceived. When you do that, and then you get back onto the battlefield of your daily life, then you will not feel that inner conflict of, oh, I need I need those people to make peace with each other or with me or with them, or no, you will just radiate a calmness that will help other people. And when other people continue to argue, you have perceived harmony and it will be anchored somehow in your heart. And probably you will lose some of it. And then that means that you will have to meditate again. That's why we meditate every day. That's why we should meditate every day, because otherwise we lose our inner perceptions. And then you lose a lot when you lose that. So, and then one exercise at the end, and then I'll stop at the exercise that Master gives at the end of that chapter on Libra, that Swami's chapter on Libra. Swami quotes Master saying, I often meditate on the horizon where the sky kisses the sea and the sea kisses the sky. So there's that line, that thin line where you can say neither it's the sea, you cannot say it's the sky, it's both. Okay, and if you meditate on that, then a lot of calmness will come. And where there is calmness, polarization ends and suffering ends. So that's my little talk.
Thank you, Darshan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so we will now segue into our Satsang, our interactive part of it. And anybody who would like to ask a question of Darshan here in the temple, we'll use this mic so everybody can hear online and whatnot, and he can hear you. And then those
now I can
online,
see you. I'm happy to see you.
Yeah, And then those online can also participate either through the chat or just, open your mics. It's great if we see a few more faces. I happen, even though I don't have my glasses on, to see that two of our pilgrims, Andrea and her sister Catherine, are online. They went to Assisi. You remember them,
I
Darshan?
remember.
They've joined us this morning online too.
Good to see you. Well, I don't see you, but good to know that you're there, both of you.
Yeah. So if anybody has any questions or comments, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be about his talk, but I see Zuni would like to say something.
As long as you don't ask my age, then it's good.
Oh, hello, sir. Darshan, it's so good to see you again. Darshan G. About polarization, it's ironic because we were used to be very close growing up, and now that we are retired and we should be even closer, it's not happening. It's the only sister I have, and she has become kind of eccentric and this and that. But talking about polarization, does it help if I am reflecting lately a lot about like the expression, put it all out, or if I'm giving the opportunity to, if she goes like, oh, if I could I talk about how I feel, how her thing is, her attitude? Should I just put it out in a nice, in a calm way to just get it out of my chest? Because I feel that there are so few issues that I do have to put it out of my chest. But it's a wise, it should be, because it bothers me that she just get away with everything and no one is question her. She's just the boss. So yeah. I don't know. I have been, even it comes in my meditation, it comes the image and I go, oh my God, can I let it go, or what I mean, or shall I address it when given the opportunity?
So you're talking about your sister?
My one and only.
Sister.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And physically, does she live far away from you, or do you share a house, or what?
No, she retired from the valley and moved to Dallas, and I'm taking care of my old elder mom. So she comes to the house and visit her, and
so you see each other regularly. You see each other regularly.
Indeed.
Okay.
It's kind of awkward, but yes, she comes and goes into my home, and whether I am there or not, it just doesn't matter that much. And I am like the one that is taking care of mom, and she's just giving instruction on how to take care of her. So
you're taking care of your mom, and she's telling you how to do that. Is that right? Of
course. Uh-huh. Yep.
So, let me ask you one more question. Did you receive initiation in Kriya Yoga?
Yes. Yeah, she's a Kriya Yogi.
Yeah. Okay. No, just to remember, I didn't remember. So, these are karmas that happen within families. It happens. There are probably not many families where some form of disharmony and incompatibility and non-acceptance and little irritations and little power games and manipulations. These are all things that happen on a lower octave in our relationships, especially with family. Okay. But you have to understand also, we have to understand also that we are on a spiritual path. And one of the things that happen when we first, and that the spiritual path is a long-term commitment, whereas family karma is usually one lifetime. Okay. And then, yes, it may come back in another life, but then it will have another format. But now you have your sister in this life, and so that's what you have to relate to. Okay. But the spiritual path is yours. You have Kriya now, but you can continue Kriya also when you are in the when you leave the body and you go to the astral world, you will still have Kriya Yoga. You will still have the masters helping you with Kriya Yoga. So that will never leave you. Now, if you realize the enormity of that gift, okay, then you can also develop faith in what the practice of that gift, what the will do also to your family karma. Because what happens, so first of all, the Kriya itself helps you to go deep. And when we are deeper, it's like with the ocean, the storm only touches the surface. When we go deeper, there is no storm. So it's like when we sleep, right? We don't know what's going on around us when we sleep. When we go deep with Kriya, we get to a space where these things like, a difficult sister or a difficult relationship, they become a little bit less important to us. They're a little bit less impactful. So, but then if you must really, it's a promise that if you develop faith in what you're doing, really, what you're doing when you pray and when you meditate, then within you, the power will increase to uplift your family karma. Okay, this is good. Master gives it in a much more mathematical formula. He says, when you become free, okay, your whole family will be free, 7 generations in the future and 7 generations back. So I'd like to bring that back to where we are now and say, when a person starts to develop spiritually, through prayer, through meditation, through devotion, through service, through satsang, then gradually, the power within you will grow to handle every family karma in the best possible way. You will become gradually a cause in your family dynamics and no longer the suffering consequence of other people's behavior. In this case, your sister's behavior. You don't need to do anything with her. Just make sure that you really storm the gates of heaven, or that you grasp Master's rope and you hold on to it and you do your Kriya and you pray, and then you say also, give me guidance. Okay? He will guide you. He will come and he will guide you, and you will find yourself making little shifts in your interaction with your sister. And you have to be a little detective, like a Sherlock Holmes or a Mrs. Marple or something. At the end of the day, you have to see, Master, I seem to have seen within me a little change. I did that differently. There was more power in my voice, or I wanted to speak up, but I realized that it was better not to speak. And so I kept my peace. And so you make a little thank you list of what went well. And sometimes it will be, these things are subtle because relationships are subtle. And there are many, many nuances to it. And probably your sister loves you. So on a deeper level. So I would say, just remember that if you go deep with devotion and Kriya and practice, gradually you will be given the power to uplift that family karma, including your mom, your sister, everyone. Okay. And
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions here in the room or online? You can just open your mic or put it in the chat. I don't know if there's anything in the chat. Is there anything in the chat, Francisco, at all? Okay. So it looks like Linda has a question or a comment.
Well, I have a question. How is the fundraising going for the property purchase?
Switching gears.
Yeah, very much so. Being
You have any other questions?
Any other questions?
How old are you?
Oh, thank you. That's a good alternative. Well, then I'll answer Linda's question. if that is the choice. So, um, so it is. We are still. I mean, when you were here, this was the summer, and what is required firstly in our community is more structure on how we proceed, and we have a person in place now who's taken charge of the whole fundraiser, and some money is coming in, and that is all very a good thing because it also helps us to support the expenses that are part of the whole process. But I know that we have made now finally a good video has been made. It will soon be sent out. And the first project will be with our European meditation groups to see if each group can do a fundraiser to reach about 2,000 or 3,000 euros, which is like probably $3,000 or $4,000. And it's a challenge. And of course, if it's less, that's fine too. But my job is not so much the fundraising, but it is in Sangha, as you know, and is to present this as a possibility for meditation groups to come together, to brainstorm, to tune themselves and become successful. And when they're successful in this, they will also be successful. You know, it creates a magnetism of success. And we're still in the beginning, but I'm very grateful that you're asking these questions. And what I'll do is I will write to you when there are new things happening. I will keep you updated. Okay. And then you do with the information what you want. You can share it with the others in Dallas. That would be nice, but you don't have to. Just do what you feel with it. But I'll keep you updated. And for the others, this is an interesting topic because basically at Ananda Sisi, we have always rented. We have rented most of our property. Ours is the temple. We have land that is ours. We have we have two big buildings that are ours. One is the guest retreat. The other one is lesson space and guest retreat both. And then the rest where our community members live and a lot of other, we have always rented. Now, it's very clear that you cannot dedicate to God what is not yours. You need ownership. So this is something that Master said from the beginning, right? He says, if you start community, and I would say, even if you start a center, better buy than rent, okay? But that's how it is. That's the situation. And now, as it happens, you know, rentals also bring a lack of stability because now the owner passed away, his sons want to sell. And so now, and there is a certain rush there. So we need to find the money to buy it. And so it's an interesting period, I would say. And all this, of course, Master, Divine Mother never leaves us where we are. She always, you know, we become complacent and then she comes and says, hey, lots of work to do. And that's how it happens. And that's probably how it will always be, and also in Dallas. And if we accept the challenge, then some joy will come, you know. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Hi, Darshan.
Hi, Mallory. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And I just want to tell you, Assisi is my happy place now.
Ah,
I just loved it there.
well, I love
but I have a
having you
person-
there. Yes,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, we all loved having you there. That's what I was saying.
I have a personal question. I've been kind of taught to pray for someone that I resent or that I feel is evil or that I'm angry at. And maybe what you said already answers that if I get deep enough in my meditation, that person won't bother me. But if I do pray for someone I perceive as evil, does that touch me at all? Or, I mean,
It depends on how
that
strong
energy,
you are.
energy
Yeah.
touch me.
Yeah. It depends on how strong you are inwardly. And personally, I wouldn't do that. Why would you do that? I mean, God will take care of people, of each individual anyway. And it's easier for you to pray for people whom you love and who need assistance and who need prayer and who needs the energy that you can channel. But if there is insecurity and there is maybe a little fear, then the prayers will become less powerful. And when your prayers feel also less powerful, then it will also, make you a little bit less strong spiritually. So you can do it, but I don't do it. I don't think I pray for people who are inherently evil on the world stage, of course. I remember with 9/11, okay, that Swami was very, how to say it, he was very outspoken because many people said, now we need to pray for the people who did this. And he said, I'd rather pray for the people who were hit by this in some way or another. And, I'm not really particularly inspired to pray for the people who did this. I know that they are the children of God, and I know that eventually God will take care of them, but that's not my major concern. And also because evil does have, and that's a very correct perception that you have, evil has it wants to convince us. It wants to dance with us. It wants to convince us that it's something that we need to relate to. I think that is the most important part of it, Mallory, that one of the things that Maya is best at is to make us feel that we need to relate to it. We need to respond, we need to react, we need to be there. Whereas in reality, when you are there, our attention should not go there. It should go to God. It should go to Divine Mother. It should go to Master. It should go to where we can serve Master. So when you pray for someone who is inherently evil or who is choosing evil, then I don't think that will be helpful for you. I don't think it will make you stronger. And your purpose is to become stronger spiritually.
I think avoidance.
Thank you.
I can avoid that person, perhaps. I don't know.
Mallory, can you give the mic to
Eric.
Eric Shaw in front of you?
Next.
Eric Shaw in front of you.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi, Eric.
yeah. I guess that. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
That provokes some thoughts in me. I mean, I guess I'm aware of Jesus' teaching that we should pray for people that hate us, and that's necessarily the same as praying for people that are evil. But I just know that in my own experience, I had, and this kind of relates to the earlier question too. I had deep struggles with members of my family where I had problems with those relationships. I read a book from it was kind of a right-wing Christian source, and it was deeply on forgiveness, and I followed that prescription very closely, and a lot of it had to do with praying for goodness for those people, which is kind of strange. It's like you didn't necessarily pray around your relationship. You just said, let them have wealth, let them have happiness, let them have joy, let them have love. And I found that process, because I was entwined, not simply because I thought they were evil, but because I was entwined with them and I had issues with them, and I was probably just making as many mistakes as they were. That deep action of focusing on forgiveness and focusing on prayer, and praying for what was good for them, so I was in a high vibration. I found I wasn't praying for necessarily a person that I thought was evil, but I found that engagement with the dark part of my soul through Jesus' prescription of forgiveness was actually really salutary. That to engage with it, but to engage with it to keep my vibration high and send them love and joy. That action of really focusing on the strength of forgiveness changed my life. It really changed my life.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, thanks. It's a very important testimony. Are you finished, or was there something more that you wanted?
I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, so I look at this also from the perspective of spiritual anatomy. And with spiritual anatomy, I mean the chakras. And I think, personally, I think that I seem to observe within my own growth that family ties are usually related to the lower chakras. Also because, our parents, for example, they give us life and they give us a body, and then they are responsible for the growth, the growth of the body, the first years of, infancy and then youth, etc., and then also the growth of the mind and the development and so forth. And that usually all takes place in the lower chakras. And with lower, I'm not talking morally low, I'm just talking anatomically low in the spine. And the energies there are usually a little more like tenacious, right? It's like they're glued. Our consciousness is almost like glued to certain dynamics, family dynamics, things people have done to us, things people have said, things that we ourselves have perceived, and fears and emotions and whatever abuse, whatever happens, that remains sort of glued to our perceptions, and especially in the lower consciousness, through emotion, through mental, the mind returns to it every time. So, on the other hand, with yoga, the energy wants to go up from the heart to the spiritual eye. There needs to be that connection. So prayer, or shifts if we pray with lots of heart, and in your case, there was probably a grace at work, a grace of Lord Jesus, of Jesus Christ. He probably was helping you in this. And so what you did when you prayed for these family members, you were making a shift from the lower chakras to the higher chakras. So, and then, maybe some of those dynamics in the lower chakras sort of weaned away. The glue dissolved in the chemistry of your prayers. And that energy then was free to rise, to go up. Another way that I look at it when it comes to family, and this goes for you and it goes also for everyone, I think, but that is to work on acceptance. So basically, what we say in the Festival of Light is calm acceptance and joy. That is how we find redemption. That's how we find inner freedom, mostly inner freedom. Because if we accept, and sometimes the acceptance can be very difficult when real, and we need to maybe go through a lot of personal emotional healing and emotional turmoil and maybe psychotherapy. But on a level of consistent, personal, spiritual effort, the long thread, the red thread that goes through, is called calm acceptance, where you really work on accepting what has happened, accepting other people where they are and as they are. And what that will do is it will empower you, because then you don't even need to forgive anymore. You say, there is acceptance, so it's not important. It becomes even immaterial whether I forgive or not. It's just what it is. So, so there are those two things that are important, especially in family relationships, because acceptance is really, really not a passive thing at all. Every time we feel in our guts, you might say, we feel reactivity and things like that, you have to bring that energy under control and guide it towards a space of acceptance. But on the other hand, maybe your karma with your family was of such nature that there was already some spirituality involved, and that made it relatively easy for you to get there also through immediately going into your heart and the higher chakras and pray and receive the grace of Christ in that. So it is very individual. It really depends on each individual.
Yeah, but also
Take-
You don't have the
Take some-
mic.
Thank you, Darshan.
Thank you. It's very quick. I also comes to my mind that the master, Yogananda, said avoid bad company. Go with people that uplift you and have relationship with people that make you feel good. Not that to drown down your energy. So that's another defense mechanism that we have. In my case of my sister, I had to deal with it. I mean, I cannot avoid her because she's there. But in general, always the master said, seek good company. People that will make you feel good or better, that you can learn, that uplift you in one way or another one. So that's another thing to bear in mind, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's always a space for free choice. And in that space of free choice, we should try to look for satsang always. Yeah, thank you. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Darshan. Good to see you.
You.
The question that we're looking into is really quite important. And I was sitting here really feeling, I mean, we can talk about it a lot, but there's certain ways that we've all handled it in the past.
Yeah.
And I was feeling for what has worked for me in the past. And one thing I know is, and I've seen people that have really been attacked by darkness, and for them to have prayed for those people, there's a difference between praying for somebody and connecting with them. I think if the prayer connects you to that energy, that may not be so good. I think you need, like, somebody in your corner. Like, I'm sitting here thinking of when I've prayed for certain people that I feel, it's like I want God in my corner first, and there's a certain amount of space, and I'm saying, God, handle that. I pray that you handle that person rise, but there's still that space. There's still the connection is to God. The connection is not to any part of that person's personality. I mean, I can acknowledge that the essence of each person is God, but until that's an experience, it's mainly words. So, yeah, I tend to give my prayers very generally for somebody's upliftment with a lot of space.
Yeah, I like
Does that
that
make any
image.
sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of wisdom in this room today. I'm really,
Yeah,
this is
really.
a great satsang.
But that was me feeling just in the space. I could feel myself like thinking of some of these people, and I could feel being drawn into the connection and the kind of downward something, like you're praying that they be different or something. You don't want to do that because that draws you into that polarization, and stepping back and just raising oneself and keeping at a distance that you can keep that lifting. So anyway, that was all I had to say.
Yeah, no, thank you. I like the image of I will draw God in my corner first. That's very, very good, very powerful. Thank you. Yeah. There was
Anybody else?
in the
Looks like
chat, I
Supriya would
think.
like to say something.
I just,
And there was
I
a
got-
question in
I
the
just-
chat.
I
Yeah.
just want to chime in, this is Supriya.
Hi, Supriya. Good to see
As
you.
wa- Hello, dear one.
Uh,
Hi. As Maitri said, there's a lot of wisdom. It's really wonderful to share like this and because we all learn, right, from each other sharing. And what's coming to my mind is Sister Gyanamata's words, very simple, and I turn to it every time God helps me remember to hear her words, change no circumstance, Lord, change me. So there we are in the midst of XYZ, crazy energy, maybe, and we all deal with it. But learning to be in it, be as strong as we can through our daily meditations and everything, and knowing and trusting that God's power, one of the attributes of God, is within us. And then, again, change no circumstance. There I am in the midst of it, and saying, change no circumstance, Lord, change me. Whew. I'm still practicing.
Thank you. Now we have even more wisdom in the room. You've just invited Sister Gyanamata in.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
She's channeling. Did
Beautiful.
you say there
Thank
is
you.
something in the chat? Is there something in
Yeah.
the chat? Okay, go ahead and read it if you would. Somebody.
Can you read it, Mark?
Hi,
I don't know.
it's Andrea. I can
Okay.
Oh,
say
Andrea.
it was
Yeah.
yes. Hi, nice to see you, Darshan.
Hi, Andrea. So good to
To
see
you.
you.
Good, thank you. Yeah, and also just to second Marjorie, I mean, Cece was just wonderful this summer. There's so much to draw on, continuing to draw on it. But I was wondering if you could just say a few words about inner peace. I know that we learned a lot about meditation and yoga, right? But um, kind of driving for that. Obviously, being back in the city, commuting down our interstate here in Texas, it's a little different than the land on Assisi and that. So anyway, if you could just say a few words about that.
Yeah, it's good to see you, first of all. And so, of course, it's more difficult when you're back in the city. You have memories that you can go back to, and that can help a lot. Just, every now and then create a little corner, have a cup of tea, sit down, close your eyes, and remember. Remember, the most inspiring moments that you had there, and relax within that memory, because time is an illusion. So whatever you perceived then, you still perceive it's still yours. Another thing that might help, Andrea, because you're doing probably already a lot, but what might help is to read about Saint Francis's life and about Assisi. There are some very good biographies. One that I use is by Julian Green. It's called Francis, The Life and God's Fool, The Lives and Times of Francis of Assisi. When you read that, it will take you, and it's just little chapters, so you don't need to, it's not a very, difficult reading or something, but it's very well written. And if you read a little bit from that, that will also take you back to that inner sphere of peace. So Assisi is both here, but it's also in your own heart. So, and you have the power to evoke that memory, by any means that you dispose of, that you have. Another thing that also helps is music, and especially Swami's music, and I think most of all his instrumental music. I listen a lot to I, Omar and Secrets of Love, those two. And I have them on a lot and I use them. And, when Narayani, Swami's assistant, who was Swami's assistant, the Spanish Narayani, at the end of Swami's, before she met Swami, or she had already met him, but she became sick with cancer, Narayani, cancer of the thyroid gland. And so she wrote to Swami, and Swami said, listen to my music. And so she listened to that music and it became hers completely. Every day she listened to it. So that may also be a help. So I would say some reading, taking time for quality time, with your soul and with Francis of Assisi, and just, go. Yeah, that's all I can think of. Plus all the other things that you're doing, of course.
And also, Andrea, keep coming to yoga and come join us here. That piece. That's the hard part. But in your own little corner there.
Yeah.
That's
How
where
far
you can
away are you
create
from Dallas? Because I don't remember that you live in Dallas. You don't live in Dallas, do you?
No,
Yeah,
no, a suburb, so it's 45 minutes or something.
but
Okay.
close to work,
Close to work, yes, that's true, yes.
I see Andrea every week pretty much, which is wonderful.
Yeah, Friday yoga.
Yeah. So one last word, because it is past our... Oh, it's right here. One last word, because it is past our time, and we're gonna be, everybody's ready to go, I think. I see
We're ready
what's
to
happening.
go. I just want to say I'm so glad that you're here, Darshan, and that you visited with us, and that close to work, I was a mile from the First Ananda Center. That saved me. My work was a mile
He's a
from the center.
TIer, Andrea. He's a former TIer, a retired TIer. So, anyway, well, we do thank everybody for joining us today, and we especially thank Darshan. It's always a joy to have you, and you know you are welcome in Texas, and you just have to just say the word, and we'll help make that happen by Divine Mother's grace. We love having you here in the States. So thank you so much. And we'll just end. We're going to send you some ohms and our official Texas, Ananda, Texas goodbye. So let's go ahead and just
Please come, please come.
visualize Darshan surrounded in light and all of his endeavors to spread the joy of these teachings throughout Europe. And namaste, y'all.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much.
And see
God
you.
bless.
Thank you. Jai Guru. Bye bye.